Hola, mi llamo Roberto.
Extreme. Kiss my ass. Championship.
I broke my back.
Podcast. All right.
Soy Fiesta.
Who do you think you are?
You absolutely suck.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
Oh, good for you.
Hold on! Hold on, I'm running!
Welcome to Extreme Podcast, ladies and germs. What's going on, big guy?
Pretty good. You left out the
I didn't ask you how you're doing. I said, what's going on?
Not too much. Talking to you. You left out championship when you mentioned the title of the podcast.
Piece of shit!
That's fine. That's fair. There's
That's,
no one.
that's our Twitter handle is Extreme Pod.
I'm
right?
aware. No one's won anything, so I think it's fair to leave it out.
I don't think our hot chick spam account followers are gonna get confused.
No, we're up to 12 now. So by the way, we have a few more. Yeah.
Hey man,
Making strides.
more eardrums being corrupted by the audio goldmine that is Extreme Championship Podcast.
Gold mine in a way in like the gold rush years when it was a very violent and dangerous place to be. Is that
Exactly. A gold mine in the sense
metaphor
of
you're going for?
Gangrene and disease and squalor and sickness and just depravity in general.
The exploitation of Asian Americans?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I think that's what we were both thinking.
I think that's the general essence of Extreme Championship Podcast when you boil it right down to the nitty-gritty. When you strip away all the facade, it really is just that in a nutshell.
Couldn't be more direct and clear.
Yep. Well, welcome all hot chick spam account followers. Pretty big night last night in the world of the National Basketball Association, wouldn't you say, Weber?
I would agree. I had the best live event experience of my entire life last night at the Boston Celtics Miami Heat Eastern Conference Final Game 4.
Big Game 4 last night. Our very own Evan Weber was live, and we thought, why not kick off the show today with a first-hand account of what it was like to be there in the Garden.
In the Garden.
Which was fucking rocking, according to Kevin Garnett.
Jungle was rocking tonight. Loved it.
It was. Absolutely. I remember from Paul Pierce sank a jumper, 20 seconds into the game, and just that first pop was... It took me back a little bit. It was extra loud, and it didn't slow down. I mean, the Celtics opened up a pretty huge lead in that first half, had a couple big threes, some nice plays. Miami couldn't do anything on the offensive side. As Rondo says, they were driving to the hoop and not getting calls like they were earlier in the series, and when they didn't get the calls, they would complain to the refs, and that would open up transition plays for Boston, which is exactly what it kind of seemed like. Boston was a young, fast team because Rondo was just running the floor.
And they had 61 points in the first half.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
That is. And
61 points in the first half, and then the Boston Celtics came out and put up a monster 28 in the second half. So it was definitely a tale of two halves. I'm actually surprised. I mean, they just got out to such a big lead. I think, what was it, 61-47 at the half?
Yeah. And then I was just going to say the Celtics with, I think, one field goal in overtime. I think they had free throws, but I think that Rondo floater.
Yeah. How about just the back and forth of Battier flopping like a bitch? It looked like a Mini Cooper drove into him or something, the way that he just fell on the floor.
Yeah, that was a bad flop. There was, obviously the crowd's going to be biased and
it was a foul, but the NBA doesn't call flopping like that. Whereas in hockey, you have if it's a situation where a guy gets tripped, but he just flies through the air like Bobby Orr, and tries to make a big spectacle out of it, soccer style. They'll call 2 penalties. They'll call unsportsmanlike for the dive, and they'll call the trip. I wish they did that in basketball, man. They really should for situations like that when Battier just he just got fucking leveled by a bus.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. And we talk about we saw something else last night regarding fouls that we've almost never seen, and that was LeBron James fouling out of the game.
I was just gonna say, man,
the third time ever in his career.
Out, everyone's going nuts.
It was the first time he's ever fouled out in a playoff game period, and the third time ever. And the first two were when he was on Cleveland. For someone that big and who is that aggressive taking the ball to the basket, it just illustrates the disgusting state of refereeing, officiating in the NBA.
Ludicrous. It's pretty ludicrous. And I mean, the thing is, like, in that last foul too, I mean, he was mauling Petrus. he was all over him. I mean, I was baffled that they called that and LeBron fouled out. I couldn't believe it.
They spoke to LeBron after the game about that, and he said, quote, "I don't foul out. If I'm going to foul out, that sixth foul, I wish I would have earned it and it had actually been a foul on me. Whatever." That is a pouty, spoiled little kid surprised the rules applied to him for once.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he mauled Petrus. He was all over him.
I mean, foul out.
KG gets that call on him every game, at least once or twice, when he's just trying to back someone down, trying to gain position, and he's using his elbows and using his body and hooking people and pushing people over. And, they called it on LeBron. Surprise, surprise. And then it was great seeing Dwayne Wade, who was 7 for 22 in the game, take the final shot. And
the shot looked pretty good.
Being there live, how far up were your balls into your stomach waiting for that Wade 3 to drop?
I wanted to bring this up because I really didn't feel nervous at any point during that game. And here, let me explain.
Watching at home on TV, I was pacing. I was smoking cigarettes. It was bad.
I'm twice as nervous watching the Wade's overtime ending 3-point miss today than I was sitting there. I was just having so much fun, and I wanted to tie this into kind of like a big happy ending about this whole game, that it was just such a great... I never once paid attention to any individual player's stat lines, or, I mean, it helped that the Celtics were up by a lot in the beginning of the game, and then when things got tight in the towards the end, I was just having so much fun. It was such a great environment, and I think that's why the NBA
together.
Yeah, there was all the Patriots. A lot of the Patriots players were in attendance, and whenever the crowd needed a little kick, they'd put the camera on Rob Gronkowski and his friends, toss on
the fist pump.
The laughing my fucking ass off party rock jam, and he would stand up. He would try to not. It took him a little bit to stand up, but then once he did, he would get into it and start swinging around the towels that they handed out.
Were they really playing the party rock anthem for Gronk?
Yeah, they would put the camera on him, and
because I believe when we were discussing the potential Rob Gronkowski Tim Tebow cage match, you called that his theme music would be the party rock anthem.
It would definitely be an LMFAO song.
The Gronk man. Oh God, I just want him to be in the news more and more and more. I hope this Kardashian thing is really legitimate.
Just getting jacked at all times.
I think that she, just for an agenda of eventually or hopefully getting into the Giselle Tom Brady circle.
Yeah,
to a certain extent, yeah.
Grinding no matter what the situation is.
I mean, because that's what she goes for. She was the location where they met at an Atlantic City casino for Memorial Day weekend. It just kind of shows she was hosting a party at Harrah's in Atlantic City. So things are starting to slip.
First it's Harrah's, and then it's Circus, and then you're at the friggin' Gold Coast.
The Gold Coast.
Doing an autograph signing at the buffet line.
The old Vegas downtown.
Oh yeah.
The Fremont.
Yeah, it's a slow
burn to
excruciating downward spiral into the depths of casino hell.
Yeah. So speaking of American entertainment and people's money, people losing their money, there's a big year for the government in this country. We have Barack Obama running up against challenger Mitt Romney. And yeah, I don't know about you, Shane, but I really like to take my politics seriously and oftentimes get involved as an active voice for this country's future.
Yeah. Now, just from talking with you, off air, doing notes for this show, it's an election year, which no matter if you're involved with politics or not, an election year is usually pretty. It touches everyone. It's pretty permeant in everyone's lives.
It sure is. It sure is. And I think it's important for everyone listening to this podcast, particularly you hot chick spam accounts, where maybe you spend a little bit too much of your time and your focus on vanity and your inspiration. Step back for a moment and really think about the future, think about your future, your family, and become an active voice in this campaign, whether it's Mitt Romney or whether it's, the side that I've taken in the relationship that I have with our President Barack Obama.
Yeah, so now, as I understand it, you've actually been in contact with Barack Obama, emailing back and forth, talking about certain issues, and you actually you have his ear a little bit. Am I correct about that?
That's right, Shane. I've been back and forth with the president a few times, and not only the president, but his celebrity friends. I've heard from George Clooney. Recently received an additional email from Sarah Jessica Parker. They're interested in me coming
the
out.
horse face herself.
Right, and they're interested in me coming out for dinners, donating $3 as a common question, a common discussion we have. So they're not asking for much, really. And I think I just do a good job of, number one, staying in touch and just sharing my views with them.
Well, can you give us a little summary of the last conversation that you guys have had?
Yeah. How about we do this? There was an email that Barack sent. Obviously, I'm sure you probably heard, he came out and more or less announced his support for gay marriage, and he sent an email following up on that, and I just, I shared my opinion on the subject with him back, and let's take a listen. Extreme Championship Podcast presents Letters to the President.
At a certain point, I've just concluded that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Barack, a direct answer from a politician? Certainly a first. LOL, I'm just joshing you, big man. I too believe same-sex couples should be allowed to marry. I'm not a gay man or a lesbian woman, but what two adult humans consent to carnally, whether it be a backdoor celebration or something else I might have even mistakenly glanced at while leafing through a streaming pornography website, it's none of my business. If you have an issue with what adults other than yourself consent to in the bedroom, then there's probably something wrong with you, Rick Santorum. Oh, and love. Yeah. People who love each other, sure. You just typed, I believe that same-sex couples should be allowed to marry, and sent it to me. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't need the context. I get it. No need to defend the fact that you are back and forth over the use of the word marriage. Marriage is a joke now anyways, right? Everyone gets divorced when they're miserable instead of just living a long, alcoholic life of insufferable emotional distress and utter mental vacancy. Why even give marriage the dignity of breezing through the lips of the prez? The rest of your explanation for just now announcing your thoughts on marriage is, well and good. In fact, your explanation is very convincing, and I would really try to believe it fully if it weren't an election year. Nonetheless, nice job by you, as per the usual. I'm going to pass on signing the petition or whatever else this requires of me. Strong regards, Evan.
1, 2, 3, 4. Almost every day, I see the same face. A broken picture too. If it's the attitude. If you can see yourself.
Dude, I read this article about how I guess Axl Rose is banning people from wearing Slash t-shirts at Guns N' Roses concerts.
How do you do that?
Oh my god.
That's a crime. Like, you can't tell people what to wear.
It's like rock music for Nazis. It's crazy, dude. Really so he's basically, these kids will come in wearing these Slash shirts and they get detained at the gate and they're told to like remove their shirts. I don't know if they have spare shirts for them to wear or like what the deal is, but they refuse to let them in the concert wearing Slash shirts.
That is literally insane.
Oh my god. Mm-hmm. The man himself, Axl Rose, always finds a way to just slip one more rung down on the totem pole.
Oh, to me, it's very funny that he's been able to kind of stay within this bubble, or I don't like. Does he still have enough people around him that he thinks that this stuff is...
I guess so. Like they must be making money.
Well, it's just
you know
new.
what I mean?
Yeah, they probably. I mean, I went to see them, and the place was sold out. So I mean, if they're making,
so I mean,
are going.
It is crazy how he is. I mean, even though he has stayed in his little bubble, I mean, I think maybe just that sort of like enigmatic approach has worked because people still seem like really, really interested in him, and are always trying to find out more about him and see what he's up to, and he's managed to sort of stay in the public eye, even though he's trying to avoid the I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird sort of dynamic with him.
It's true though. It's. I mean, he latched on to, if he were to, so let's use the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If he were to go to that ceremony, he wouldn't have got as much press as if he were to write a completely insane letter explaining his reasons for not going.
Exactly. And you knew deep down there was no way he was ever going to go. But I'm sure, I mean, in terms of like piquing interest and sort of like playing the game and generating stories, and he's definitely he approached the situation the right way. You know what I mean? Because you're right. I mean, more people talked about the crazy letter and the tour that he was on, and maybe it was all just a publicity stunt. I'm sure it worked out perfectly for Axl that Guns N' Roses was on tour, or his quote unquote Guns N' Roses was on tour when the whole Hall of Fame thing went down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You got to wonder if he really, I mean, I'm sure he probably is really just that insane, but there's also got to be some sort of method to his madness. You know what I mean?
Right. And you see bits of it too, the interview that he did for the Rock show on VH1 Fuse, whatever that is, where he seemed like he'd poke fun at himself. He mentioned that he was always late in high school and spoke about which is really ridiculous, not showing up to shows and things like that. So you have those moments too where it's like, wait, he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what this is and how it's working. And if he goes back with the rest of the members and they reform the Guns N' Roses that everyone knows, then it's just a washed up rock band. But now, now it's the Axl Rose show. And the more he continues to push it as Guns N' Roses, the more it becomes the Axl Rose show and nothing like Guns N' Roses.
Yep.
But he's still able to,
after all the shit he's pulled, missing gigs and fucking people over.
Oh my God.
And treating fans like shit, not letting fans in that are wearing Slash shirts. After all of that, the fans still care. He's still relevant. They still care about him. It's kind of crazy.
It's a circus. I don't know if he's relevant still, but
yeah.
He exists in a weird space where it's like no one. He really isn't. Like no one really cares.
That gets into a bigger conversation of like any musician. What is relevance?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, you're right.
Like,
you're right.
It's
relevant to who? I guess. So he's certainly relevant to the rock and roll. People around our age and older.
And then you have Aerosmith, who is certainly relevant to like the American Idol watching general shitty American public, but is probably not that relevant anymore to actual rock and roll fans. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of complete degenerate waste of life, let's talk about Mr. Curt Schilling here. How about that?
I've never worked an honest day in my life.
Let's go.
We kind of ripped this guy a new asshole last week on ECP, but a lot has developed since last week's episode. Now, just for a little backstory, Curt Schilling owns a video game company called 38 Studios, right? And they develop role-play games. Fantasy role-play games, whatever.
Awesome.
It's a relatively new company, and it was based out of Delaware. Am I correct in that? It was based out of Delaware. Delaware and Massachusetts, I think. And
yeah, I haven't looked at that, but the incorporation in Delaware is just a lot of businesses do that because you can incorporate tax there and you get tax advantages, but you can actually have the headquarters anywhere you want.
So the company was based out of Massachusetts, but they were officially in Delaware. Anyway, the state of Rhode Island gave Schilling's company a $75 million loan to move from Massachusetts to Rhode Island with the promise that it would create close to 500 jobs, boost the economy, blah, 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 blah. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, they released their first game entitled Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning.
Awesome.
They released that on February 7th of this year. And they began working on their new game, which is an MMO, which I forget what it's, massive multiplayer something.
Who cares?
Yeah. MMO is basically like a World of Warcraft type game where it's this gigantic multiplayer world that everyone across the world plays on. And that was going to be their next project. So news starts to come out that they might not hit their first loan payment to the state of Rhode Island for $1.125 million or something along those lines. May 1st, they actually missed that loan payment. Now the report starts, the media coverage starts to really engulf 38 Studios. They're bickering back and forth with the government of Rhode Island. May 17th, they finally write a check so that for their first loan payment to the state of Rhode Island. But they tell the state they can't cash it because the check's going to bounce. Now, mind you, this is just a small, tiny payment for a $75 million loan. This is only a payment a little over $1 million that Schilling can't make, right? I think that's where we ended it last week. May 24th rolls around. Schilling sends out an email to the entire staff of 38 Studios, laying everyone off, fires everyone at the company.
How many people do you employ total?
Right around 400.
Right? Takes away their health insurance, takes away their benefits, all right away. All right? This came down like out of nowhere, just fired everyone.
Right.
Okay. Now, it turns out, we'll keep going down the timeline. Now, the 25th of May, Lincoln Chafee, the governor of Rhode Island, came out and said he's going to seek an audit about how the company used the $50 million it had received in loan funds, all of which is now gone. The governor wants everything documented because there are going to be, quote unquote, so many lawsuits. May 26th, it comes out that some of the employees that took advantage of 38 Studios' relocation program when the company moved from Massachusetts to Rhode Island, this happens, when a lot of companies move, they offer to sell their employees' houses in order for them to buy new ones. You know what I mean?
Right.
So turns out that a lot of these people that took advantage of the relocation program with 38 Studios, turns out 38 Studios never sold their home.
I've never worked an honest day in my life.
So now they might be on the hook for a second mortgage because their original homes were never sold. So it's basically a complete, gigantic, unmitigated mess for our beloved Red Sox pitcher, Curt Schilling.
A former baseball star creating jobs, bringing America back.
A couple of other points. I've been looking at Curt Schilling's Twitter account, and on the 28th of May, someone asked him if he would plan on to pay back his quote-unquote bailout money, and he responded saying he had not received any of it and had not asked. So I guess he didn't. Maybe that's a bailout beyond the initial credit.
Schilling. His response to all this is that he put $50 million of his own money into it, right? And he hasn't received a dime. So
basically, that sounds like he's just matching.
He's losing out too.
He's just matching what everyone's saying that he was given in blue.
Who
turned into nothing.
puts $50 million of their own money into one of the riskiest businesses you can get into? I mean,
Creating jobs, bringing America back.
who does that? It's the own guy's fault for putting $50 million of his money into it.
If I was his family, we talked last week about how he brought his wife to the Olive Garden for Valentine's Day. If I was his wife, I would say, where's my husband's priorities at? Where are those at?
Huge geek, have been my whole life.
He can't take me out to a nice dinner on what is, arguably the
Not going to be able to
one
afford
night of
Olive
the year.
Garden in a little while.
Oh, it's so awful. And I was reading a blog
The
by
worst
someone.
part? Those breadsticks, that pasta fajoule, and that clam zuppa, that was the state of Rhode Island paying for that delicious Italian dinner.
And many more, I assume.
Many more, exactly.
The
You know
thing
what I
about-
love too? How Curt Schilling, outspoken right-wing Republican, wants less government, all about capitalism,
Bringing America back.
and self-made man and all this bullshit. He's begging the state of Rhode Island for more money. He wants tax credits. He wants them to bail him out. He's completely turning around, and he's asking the government for more money. This is the guy that stumped for John McCain. He's been as outspoken and annoying as any professional athlete and really any media personality that's not directly involved in politics that I can think of.
And he's stumped for very conservative politicians.
Exactly.
Going against
So
everything. Everything. He's just such a hypocrite with all of this. And, you talk about the amount of money that Rhode Island promised him. I was reading a blog from someone who works in the video game industry, and this is just one person's opinion, but it seemed like someone who was certainly educated in the business of this and educated in what happened with 38 Studios and, other mentioned Midway going under in the past, things like that. But for the type of game Curt Schilling was looking to release, for development costs, I guess realistically what you need for something like that is closer to $180 million to develop it, and then call it another $80 million to
exactly
market it.
I have
marketing
a quote here from CBS News. It's exactly what you just said. It's from CBS News. The types of video games 38 Studios creates have upfront development costs in the range of tens of millions of dollars, then cost hundreds of millions of dollars more to create. They take years to get to the market, and their commercial success is not guaranteed. Yeah. This is the company that the state of Rhode Island gave $75 million to.
Well, the thing is, they gave them so much money, but an understanding of a business plan to recoup that money, an understanding of the fact that you need more than that to be successful. Where was all that? There was none of that. And
well, I guess they thought that Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning was gonna raise the extra hundreds of millions of dollars that they needed to create this game.
And something else I read is if
who does that? Any business that you're getting into, when you start on a project, you have an idea of how much it's going to cost and what your oversight is and blah, blah, blah. How do you start working on a project that's going to cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars with a $75 million loan?
Huge geek, have been my whole life.
Yeah, you just don't. And I think the math that I heard on break even from that game was that based on the game being an 18 plus, adult game, not adult like isn't pornography, but just for adults only, 1 in 50 people in the United States over 18 would have to buy that game for it to break even. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
You don't even have to really crunch those numbers. Just think about that.
Bringing America back.
You also have to put a little bit of blame on the state of Rhode Island in this, okay? Now,
sure.
State of Rhode Island, one of the smallest state in the union, has an 11.2% jobless rate, chronic budget deficits throughout the state.
Bringing America back.
I don't know what else to say about this. I just hope it's over, and the end result, hopefully, is the end of Curt Schilling in the public eye. I just can't do it anymore. I would be very thankful if this taught him a lesson and we didn't have to hear about he thinks is going on in the Red Sox clubhouse, his opinion on politics, and it just, hopefully this is enough to shut him up.
The government totally sucks, you motherfucker. The government totally sucks. Ben Franklin was a rebel indeed. He liked to get naked while he smoked on the weed. He was a genius.
So, we've got a new segment here on Extreme Championship Podcast. The Schilling Talk segues nicely into this. We want to know what would happen if you pit a certain person, an athlete, member of the media, popular culture, whatever, against another one in the ultimate grudge match. The only way to really decide who is a better man, who is a better person, who has more instinctual carnal aggression, right? The only way you can do this is to put two people in a cage match in a fight to the death. We call it Extreme Championship Podcasts Cage Rage.
Cage Rage!
Cage Rage, guys.
Now, the way this works, this was solely based off a hypothetical conversation we had a few episodes ago where we pitted Gronkowski and Tim Tebow. They had a little war of words going in the media. We were just wondering what would happen if they fought to the death in a steel cage. That's the ultimate way to decide this feud. So the entire premise of this segment is totally based off the back of Marvel cards, right? The back of X-Men cards. We are going to rate each competitor from 1 to 5 in 5 different categories. The first one being physical prowess. The second one being mental faculty. That's intelligence for all you common folk. The third being speed. fourth being clutch performance, and then the 5 being intangibles, right?
Got it.
We're going to tally up the total at the end of the cage rage, at the end of our lengthy discussion, and it probably won't be too lengthy, actually. And then we're going to have a winner. We're going to have a ECP cage rage winner, and that man will move on in the bracket. We don't even know how big this tournament is yet. It could be over 600 people in this tournament.
I'd say
we don't even...
I say we commit to having a bracket established. We post it on the Facebook page, on the website.
I don't think a 600-person tournament bracket will fit on one Facebook page. We
Not
might need to create multiple Facebook pages for the ECP's Cage Rage.
Cage Rage!
Okay. Our Cage Rage this week, first ever, opponents, Schilling, name of Curt Schilling, against clearly one of the man who is living out the story of Kenny Powers in the flesh, in the real life.
We'll take two hilarious washed-up baseball players, both based out of New England right now.
Right. One of which, who we spoke about for really at length just now, destroying the lives of hundreds of people and making a fool out of himself, making a fool...
Bringing America back.
Really out of a whole number of
losing weight.
Losing weight, yep. In the process, it's one of his positives, one of the very few. And then on the other side, Mr. Jose Canseco, one of the crazier people out there on Twitter right now.
For the Worcester Tigers, baby!
It is the Worcester Tornadoes. And after doing a little bit of research, he last played for the Quintana Roo Tigers of the Mexican Baseball League, however, was banned from that league this year for refusing to submit to a drug test and just admitting to taking testosterone. So,
yep, 2 knucklehead baseball players, one of which obviously needs to be eliminated. So we figured what better way to do that than put them in ECP's Cage Rage.
It's time for Extreme Championship Podcast Cage Rage! Oh my God!
What a maneuver!
There is no place to run.
So they're in the cage. The battle has begun. Let's start with a very important category. To the extent of which either of these opponent or either of these contestants has this is certainly debatable, and it's mental faculty.
Mental faculty. All right, mental faculty. Now this is obviously intelligence for you common folk, for you country folk. Mental faculty. All right, we're rating this 1 to 5, right?
1 to 5. How?
Curt Schilling at least has the mental faculty to get $75 million from the state of Rhode Island. That's got to count for something.
I believe he does have the mental faculty, and I think that's what infuriates me with this whole thing too, is because you think he did know what he was doing to a certain extent.
But he's also a complete idiot that invested a bunch of money in a fantasy video game company. So I don't see how you can really give the guy more than a 2.
Fair enough. I'm going to give him a 3. I think he's a little brighter. I think he's just an asshole, and he doesn't care.
I was honestly debating between giving him a 1 or a 2. You're going 3. Let's say 2.5 so we don't harp on this for too long.
2.5, fair.
2.5. All right. Moving on to the next cat. We got to get to Jose Canseco. He does have the mental faculty to stay in the spotlight and maintain a career after baseball, no matter how pathetic it may be. He also has I almost have this feeling that Jose Canseco is just conning all of us, and he's incredibly smart and intelligent, and he just acts like a complete psycho in general life and on Twitter to extend his celebrity beyond his baseball playing years. But that's probably not the case, so I think we should probably just give him a 1.
Yeah, it's a 1. It's either a 5 or a 1, and it's a little too crazy to be a 5.
All right, so Canseco gets a 1.
Advantage, Curt Schilling so far.
Okay, next category, physical prowess.
Physical prowess.
Okay, Curt Schilling, he is an athlete. He probably packs a mean right-hand punch, with his throwing arm. But I don't really think I can see Schilling doing any damage to Canseco other than with his right arm throwing hand punch to the face, maybe a right cross or something. I don't see Schilling doing any other damage besides that, unless he uses his mental faculty and tricks Jose Canseco into like I don't know, letting him elbow him in the face or something. That's all. That's the only thing I can see. So physical prowess, I'm saying a 2 for Schilling.
I'm gonna say a 1 for Schilling. I agree with you about the arm, but he hasn't played baseball in a while. And what has he been doing since he stopped playing baseball? Playing video games and sitting on his fat ass.
Huge geek, have been my whole life.
So I'm not going to say he's terribly out of shape, and in general is really a slob of a man at this point.
All right, yeah, Schilling gets a 1.
Fair enough.
Canseco, still pretty beastly.
Still pretty beefly. Still pretty beastly, and also admitted to using testosterone this year, so he's also still on steroids.
Yes, ECP's Cage Rage contains no drug testing, by the way.
No, of course not.
So Canseco, you might have to give him a 4, definitely above average, maybe a 4.5 even.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Let's go 4. That's fair.
All right,
because he is old.
4 for Canseco.
Okay.
All right, moving on to speed. Schilling's slow and fat, and probably won't be able to avoid bankruptcy.
That was good.
Awesome. I'm going to give him a 1.
I think anything that has to do with physicality, you can toss this in with the physical prowess, but speed and agility, he wasn't agile enough to avoid these economic woes. He's mentally and physically shiftless.
Yeah,
so I'm going to also
Schilling's going to have to pull something out of his ass to pull out this death match against Canseco. I just don't see it. Also, you got to remember, Schilling going to be hopping around in the cage on a surgically repaired ankle. We all remember the bloody sock game, so you got to factor that in. I don't see how we can give Schilling over a 1 in speed.
And then for Canseco, I'm going to have to say a 3. He still plays a sport.
Average. I'd say average.
Yeah, we'll call maybe
it was
say
one
2.5 even.
First 40-40, man.
Fair enough.
40 stolen bases.
Yeah, and I mean, that's all he really has to do nowadays is just kind of be in shape. And again, the performance-enhancing drugs, we'll give him a 3.
Yep.
Moving on.
All right. Clutch performance. Here's where I think Schilling might have Jose Canseco's number. Schilling won 3 World Series, broke the curse of the Bambino, pitched on a bloody sock. No matter how much of a jackass this guy is, you got to give this guy the clutch performance category. I think I might have to go 5.
Completely agree. With 38 studios, not so much. Baseball, no question. Like you said, when it's all said and done, people are going to remember Curt for his baseball heroics.
That's the other thing. This 38 studios thing isn't over. Maybe Curt Schilling, maybe he walks into some money from some crazy Republican presidential candidate that he endorsed back in the day. You never know. So maybe he pulls something out of his ass.
I've never worked an honest day in my life.
So clutch performance.
I'll give him a 5. I mean, all right. If anything, he has that.
Okay. Now, Canseco lost miserably on Celebrity Apprentice, right?
He did.
But I believe he went to the World Series 3 times with the Athletics, won it 1 year in '89. Also, guy was AL MVP in 1988, AL Rookie of the Year in 1986, AL Comeback Player of the Year in 1994, 6-time All-Star.
Let's go with a 3, given the fact that he was on steroids most of that time. I also believe there was a point where he was supposed to compete in a celebrity boxing event, and he said in his twin brother Ozzy
in Ozzy Guillen to box for him.
He's got
That's
some
correct.
Interesting clutch performances.
Let's move on to the last category, the one that could determine everything: intangibles. All right, now doing some quick simpleton math. Canseco's at 11. Curt Schilling is at 9.5. So you look at intangibles. Curt Schilling, he's definitely he's not the quickest. I just don't see how he can ride clutch performance all the way to victory.
I totally agree, and I also think Jose Canseco scores potentially above 5 in the carnal aggression department.
Yeah, you got to look at carnal aggression, right?
When he played,
that's probably over 5.
Here's a good story. When he played briefly for the Pawtucket Red Sox, a few of my friends went to the game, and they, along with a number of other fans, waited out back for him to leave to try to get an autograph from him, surrounded his car, and I think he ran over some feet. He essentially drove his truck through a crowd.
Okay, well, the one thing you can say about Schilling is that he probably has a strong chin. He'll probably try to hang on to dear life for a little while during the thrashing that Canseco will inevitably give him. The bloody sock performance, you gotta give it to Schilling for hanging in there. But I think the main way you have to look at it is Canseco is going to be stepping into the ECP cage in a testosterone-fueled rage, while Curt Schilling will most likely be stepping into the cage in a chimichanga debt-induced stupor. I think you get to go 5 Canseco, 1 Schilling. I can't see it any other way. I bet out of most of the people that we're gonna have in this 600-man cage match tournament, I can almost guarantee you that no one would be more more excited to step into a death match in the ECP cage than Jose Canseco.
I have a feeling
this is the shit that he lives for.
I have a feeling Jose Canseco is going far in this tournament.
I have a feeling he's going far too. That intangibles category with Jose Canseco scares me.
Because the further we go along, the more research we do, the more we learn, and there's going to be stories that we have to kind of combat anything that comes up with everybody else.
Exactly. So
and
Canseco wins the ECP inaugural Cage Rage Challenge 16 to 10.5. Goodbye, Curt Schilling. We barely knew you.
Cage Rage!
All right, Weber, you want to wrap it up with a wrestling minute?
Let's do it. So good ECW DVD came out. Actually, those best of DVDs, I typically will glance at the matches, and this one has a lot of good matches on it.
The
usually
biggest
disappointed.
matches in ECW. It's going to be great, man. They start off with Shane Douglas versus Too Cold Scorpio, Flash Funk himself from 1994.
Too Cold Scorpio. So many guys were so good in ECW and just never made it.
Oh man, I know, it's insane. You got Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. Raven was the man in ECW. Dean Malenko, when he was in ECW, teaming with Too Cold Scorpio versus Taz and Eddie Guerrero. How good is that? Dude, Taz circa 1995 was a beast.
Yeah, Taz was something else back then.
Speaking
He quickly
of, they have
degenerated into
the famous Taz Sabu match, the feud that had been building forever.
Yeah.
bunch of like Rob Van Dam and Sabu versus the Eliminators. Get to see Bill Alfonso blowing his whistle. They have Chris Jericho when he was in ECW versus Too Cold Scorpio. Shane Douglas, Cactus Jack. This thing looks awesome.
I think we have some Masato Tanaka, Mike Awesome in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
which is just
that was
brutal.
A great match.
Brutal spots, just
that
tables.
was a great match, yeah. Brutal is right. There's some Cactus Jack on here. You got Tommy Dreamer, Just Incredible. Need to put that in there somewhere. I'm excited, Weber. We also have the 1000th anniversary of Raw coming up.
In a future edition of ECP, we'll be doing a legendary, epic, and broad-ranging trivia. Trivia
and
contest
actually,
for Raw.
It's a little over a month away. So from now on in the Wrestling Minute, I think when it gets closer to the 1000th episode of Raw, we're going to start looking back at some of our favorite Raw moments, just quick blasts for the Wrestling Minute that's going to end the show.
I think that's a good idea. And on that
I
note,
think that's a good idea too.
Peace,
on suckers.
That note, eat it.
Eat it.
All right.
What are you, the Richie Cunningham from Happy Days?
Yeah, why not?